World of Warfare presents Operation Gomorrah. As part of the Allies' strategic bombing campaign of the Second World War, one of the many bombing raids made on Hamburg during the last week of July 1943, codenamed Operation Gomorrah, caused one of the largest firestorms in the entirety of the war, killing an estimated 34,000 to 40,000 people, while wounding 180,000 more, at the same time destroying over 61% of the city's housing. This is the story of how the Allies came to create one of the most horrific and tragic events of World War II. During the First World War, the long years of trench warfare-inspired standoff, attrition, and slaughter led early aviation leaders to realize the potential of air power and strategic bombing as a means to shorten wars by gaining superiority from the skies. Among them, Brigadier General Billy Mitchell was one of the first to appreciate the destructive potential of bomber warfare, and when General John J. Blackjack Pershing arrived in France to assume command of the American Expeditionary Forces, Mitchell approached him about using air power to knock out German airfields and supply depots behind enemy lines, which marked the genesis of the Bomber Mafia that would come to preeminence during the interwar years of 1919 to 1939. By the end of World War I, U.S. Air Force Lieutenant General Henry Hap Arnold, General Ira Eaker, and Carl Toohey Spaatz became fast disciples of Mitchell, who is now known as the father of American air power, while in Great Britain, Air Marshal Hugh Trenchard, Sir Charles Portal, Sir Arthur Harris, and Sidney Bufton became deep believers in strategic bombing to shorten the duration and overall bloodshed of wars. Known collectively as the Bomber Mafia, most drafted their ideas about strategic bombing from a number of international sources, including Italian Air Commander General Giulio Douhet, who published his masterwork on the subject, The Command of the Air, in 1921. By the start of the Second World War, advances in fighter and bomber design had developed rapidly during the interwar years, leading to enormous improvements that allowed bombers to fly higher and faster with substantially improved payloads. Bomb sight technology had also improved thanks to the work of Carl L. Norden and his Norden bomb sight, and although his initial claims of accuracy proved anything but, bombing accuracy within a chosen target would improve to 70% by the end of the war, while average bomb accuracy over the full course of the war remained at a miserable 20%. By the summer of 1943, the Allies had developed techniques that improved overall bomber accuracy and aircrew defenses, including area bombing techniques, the use of Pathfinder aircraft to guide planes over targets, and H-2S radar. They also implemented the use of window or chafe, which were aluminum foil strips released from Pathfinders intended to disorient German defense radar systems. Initially targeting military infrastructure and factories producing weapons of war, the Butt Report, published in August of 1941, analyzed 600 photographs of raids over the previous 3 months, indicating that only a third of Allied aircrews reached their targets, dropping their payloads up to 5 miles away from their intended aiming point, prompting Allied air leaders to rethink their position on bombing civilian targets instead. Meant to severely impact the morale of the German people, not to mention cripple the Nazis' industrial workforce, area bombing of cities and civilians soon gained political support from President Franklin D. Roosevelt and British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. While the American 8th Bomber Command witnessed a slow buildup in the United Kingdom during the latter half of 1942, neither the Americans or the British were able to directly bomb Germany until 1943. At the same time, due to Britain's experience of being bombed during the Blitz, RAF and USAAF leaders began to focus on incendiary bombs due to their ability to inflict much more damage than high-explosive bombs alone. Detailed studies were carried out by Britain's Research and Experiment Unit, known as RE8, developing a precise ratio of high-explosive bombs to incendiaries to better damage or destroy Germany's residential dwellings in a 1-2 punch, whereby the high-explosive bombs would blow out windows, while incendiaries would make firefighting challenging at best. To further hamper first responders and firemen, RE8 also developed delayed action fuses for some high-explosive bombs, which further suppressed any firefighting efforts by the Germans. The Americans quickly embraced the RE8's bomb ratios. However, the Americans produced oil-based incendiaries, while the British preferred 4-pound magnesium-cased thermite bombs. Before July of 1943, the RAF Bomber Command's singular focus had been on the heavily industrialized Ruhr Valley region of Germany, subjecting the region to a 5-month bombing campaign. However, now that the Allies possessed such devastating new weapons, they chose Hamburg as a location particularly susceptible to an incendiary attack. Germany's second-largest city, the city's shipbuilding and U-boat industries made it a priority 1 target. Hamburg also possessed more industrial targets than most other German cities, while its geographic proximity to Britain lessened aircrew exposure to anti-aircraft fire and fighter attacks. Its position close to the coast and on a prominent river, lastly, made it an easily identified target for Allied navigators. Commencing on July 24th of 1943 and lasting for 8 days and 7 nights, Operation Gomorrah was named after one of 2 Canaanite cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, whose destruction is recorded in the Bible. Carried out by the RAF, the American 8th Air Force, and 3 other Allied air forces, 795 RAF bombers were guided over Hamburg by H-2S radar and pathfinders, who dropped yellow target indicators and flares over 5 districts within the city. Shortly after 1 in the morning, 6 waves of bombers dropped their payloads over the city, and while many crews dropped their bombs outside of a 3-mile aiming point thanks to the Germans' use of red decoy fires, a 6-mile creepback developed that ultimately saved the city center. Some 40,000 firemen were on hand to tackle the subsequent fires, yet their ability to fight was limited due to rubble blocking most thoroughfares in the bombed-out and burning districts of the city, leaving Hamburg ablaze for the next 3 days to come. Local police estimated the death toll at 1,500 lives, while hits on the Blohm & Voss shipyard led to the destruction of 3 U-boats under construction. A second daylight raid by the Americans was conducted on July 25th, when 127 aircraft were ordered to bomb the Blohm & Voss shipyard and the Gluckner Aero engine factory in Hamburg. Attacked by 30 German fighters on their outbound leg at a cost of 2 bombers, 90 out of 127 B-17s reached Hamburg at 1640 hours, and despite poor visibility caused by smoke from the previous night's bombing raids, no hits were made on their intended targets, instead sinking 2 large ocean liners used as depots and barracks, pinpointed as alternative targets. 78 B-17s were damaged by German flak, forcing 10 aircraft to fall out of formation before being finished off by enemy fighters. During the night shift that same day, 705 RAF bombers raided Essen due to persistent smoke over Hamburg, leading the British to limit their assault on Hamburg to 6 de Havilland Mosquitoes who flew nuisance raids over Hamburg to keep the city in a state of high alert. On July 26th, the same 6 bomb groups headed back to Hamburg. However, due to problems with the formation of the combat boxes and many early returns, only 54 aircraft reached the city, striking a U-boat shipyard and a power station, the latter depriving Hamburg of 40% of its electricity capacity for more than a month. German flak damaged 2 airplanes, which were subsequently lost on the return flight to England. Shortly before midnight on July 27th, 787 RAF aircraft bombed the dense housing of the working-class districts of Billwerder, Borgveld, Ham, Hammerbrook, Hohenfeld, and Rothenburgsort. The resultant firestorm was fueled by a compendium of causes, including unusually dry and warm weather, firefighting limitations due to the detonation of blockbuster bombs early in the raid, the recall of Hanover's fire crews to their own city, and the nature of incendiary bombs themselves. Tornadic fires created a massive inferno, with winds up to 150 miles an hour and temperatures approaching 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit, while flames rose 1,500 feet into the air as they incinerated more than 8 square miles of the city. Asphalt streets burst into flames caused by the phosphorus from incendiary bombs, while leaked fuel oil from damaged or destroyed ships, barges, and storage tanks ignited the water in canals and the main harbor. An estimated 18,474 people died in the blaze, many from carbon monoxide poisoning after the superheated fire consumed all the oxygen in bomb shelters. The hurricane-forced winds caused by the firestorm swept people off the street like dry leaves, while superheated air temperatures in bomb shelters left first responders to estimate the number of dead in a given shelter by measuring the depth of ash left on bomb shelter floors. Only 4 mosquitoes executed nuisance raids over Hamburg on July 28th due to heavy smoke from the previous raids, which completely hid target indicators, while on the 29th, a photo reconnaissance Spitfire reported good weather and patches of smoke over Hamburg, which made for visual markers of possible targets around the city. In response, 777 bombers took off from England, with 707 reaching Hamburg, where pathfinders missed their aiming point by 2 miles, instead marking a district south of the city, which had been largely destroyed in a previous raid. Yet the strikes heavily damaged the Barmbek and Wandsbek districts of the city. Small fires quickly developed into large blazes caused by collapsed firefighting efforts due to delayed explosions from an earlier raid, which killed or incapacitated many Hamburg firemen. While the Germans never recorded the death toll from the raid, what is known is that 370 people died from carbon monoxide poisoning in a large public shelter. Due to bad weather over Hamburg, the next raid on the city was delayed until August 2nd, and despite weather reconnaissance reports about possible storms close to the city, 737 bombers took to the skies, losing 5 over the North Sea due to German night fighters. Just before reaching the coast of Germany, the bomber stream ran into a severe storm, which forced many aircraft to abort or choose alternative targets. Losing 4 more bombers in the storm, only 400 reached Hamburg, with mixed results after pathfinders failed to execute effective target marking. By now, the Germans had developed tactics to counter the effects of window by running an ongoing radio broadcast of all bomber stream activity over Germany, while many night fighters began operating independent of ground radar guidance to search for possible targets. The mission saw the downing of 8 bombers around Hamburg, and an additional 11 were felled by night fighters operating along the Kammhuber line on the bomber stream's homebound journey. In the first week after the raids, nearly 1 million people had evacuated the city, which now saw 61% of its housing stock destroyed or damaged, reducing the city's labor force by 10%. Post-war documents reveal how thoroughly alarmed German officials had become over the raids, while Allied interrogations of Nazi officials after the war indicated that Hitler had stated publicly that further raids of similar weight would force Germany out of the war. Hamburg's severe losses to its industrial capacity never fully recovered during the remainder of the war, except in essential armaments industries where maximum effort was made. Figures given by German sources indicated that 183 large factories had been destroyed out of 524 in the city, while 4,118 smaller factories out of 9,068 were also destroyed. Local transport systems were completely put offline for quite some time, while 214,350 out of 414,500 dwellings were completely destroyed. After Operation Gomorrah, Hamburg faced an additional 69 Allied bombing raids before the end of the war, dropping a total of 22,580 long tons of bombs on the city. All told, Allied air forces dropped 2.7 million long tons of bombs on Germany and Axis-held territories over the course of the war, comprising 1,440,000 bomber sorties and 2,680,000 fighter sorties. By war's end, the Allies' heavy reliance on the strategic bombing of German cities and factories, combined with the Allies' superior rates of attrition and arms production, to bring the bloodiest conflict in human history to a merciful close.